So what is a grail? It's a term that gets thrown around pretty loosely in the collectible hobby. Some people would just describe a grail as a collectible that they really like, that they would really love to own, or their prized possession. Others would look at a grail as something that even if they had the money, it would still be a very difficult, near impossible item to purchase. And I'm a little bit more on that side of the fence. I feel like a true grail is something like an original piece of art, like a cover for AF-15, that even if you had millions of dollars, you couldn't just click a button and purchase that item. But everybody has their own definition, and today we're going to look at our Facebook group. I asked them what their grail collectible was. It could be something that they currently own, something that they really want to own. So before we get into this, make sure you hit a like on this video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and hit that notification bell while we take a look at what is your grail. All right, guys, so first up, ASM 300, CGC signed by Stan Lee, Todd McFarlane, and David Michelinie. So I'm a little bit on board with this because anybody could buy an amazing Spider-Man 300 first full appearance of Venom if you have the money. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to grab one that's signed by Stan Lee, Todd, and David Michelinie, but it's still there where you can purchase one. There's probably one or so on eBay. Somebody agreeing, don't have an ASM 300 yet. I did used to own an ASM 300 in a 9.8. And my grail collectible, I don't know, I think it was always Amazing Fantasy 15, but I did end up owning one and I ended up selling it. I did a whole video on that. So I don't know, I don't really have any true grails right now. Scott says mine was the Star Wars Legends, the Old Republic. Thankfully, I was able to pick it up from a seller at a very reasonable price. Eddie says, my Caliber Comics presents #1, first appearance of the Crow, signed by James O'Barr, easily my favorite thing in my collection. Yeah, I think having it signed, it does add a little bit more of that uniqueness to it, right? Where it's, okay, especially if you were the one that obtained the signatures. Danny says, not big into statues, but this was definitely one for me. It may not be as amusing, but I love this piece. Couldn't feel more blessed to own this. I don't know which is this Boba Fett or Mandalorian? Jesse Caps Cave says TMNT 1 signed by Eastman and Laird. I would put that in an argument as definitely a grail comic book to own, especially signed by both creators. Kenny F says for rarity, Avengers vs. Justice League hardcover. We just talked about that Absolute Edition on a recent video where me and Jake from The Brave and the Boys, we counted down every DC Absolute Edition, and we still currently have a giveaway going on that video if you want to check it out. So favorite is the Vagabond Viz Big set. Think it's the best comic ever drawn, not in just manga, but in all comic media. I just wish it was deluxe hardcovers like Berserk, and it deserves it. So we say this bad boy. I don't even know what I'm looking at right here. If I click on this, is it going to mess everything up? Some type of figure. All right, cool. Alfredo says, my grail is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, signed by Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and Sigourney Weaver. Also has a chip of a brick from the actual Ghostbuster firehouse in New York inside of it. So that's pretty cool. That adds like that extra level of uniqueness to it where not everybody just has a piece of that brick. Transformers IDW Phase 2 hardcovers are probably my biggest grail. I used to own that whole set too. Matt says Daredevil 181 signed by Klaus Janson. Superman for All Seasons Deluxe Edition signed by Jeff Loeb. Nico has an Amazing Fantasy 15 facsimile, but it's signed by Stan Lee. I always like that, having those facsimiles signed, because another thing with me with grails, I'm at the point in my life where if I had like a Detective Comics 27, I would rather have the money than have this very valuable item just sitting there on the shelf. But again, maybe if I was a multi-millionaire, then it would be like, yeah, bring on the AF-15s, bring out the Action 1s. I don't know if it's a grail, but I have a limited edition USM, what's that, Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 Barnes and Noble Omni. Very cool piece of Omni history. Yeah, the first omnibus. That's a cool grail piece, I would say. USSS flag from G.I. Joe. These two. So this looks like the first Gambit statue from Sideshow, and I believe this is the more recent Rogue Premium format with the exclusive portrait that quickly sold out. Okay, I'm not mad at it. Dog Alien 1/3 scale maquette. A Tech 27. I'll never be able to get one. Maybe I'll be lucky to find one at a con, hold it, and snap a picture with a copy. Yeah, I think for me, like grail comic books are definitely Action 1 and Tech 27. The Golden Age first appearances of the first superhero and Batman, so much more harder to obtain, more expensive than the Silver Age Marvel stuff. Because I've owned like almost all the Marvel blue chip keys. The only one I never really got was Hulk 1, and I don't think Journey into Mystery 83. I don't think I've picked that one up either. But I had AF-15, I had X-Men 1, Fantastic Four 1, Avengers 1, then Bronze Age, like Hulk 181. I've owned a few of those. Woody says, I want that Dark Tower Omni. Aren't they doing a reprint of that? That's not the like slipcase book. Lohit says that Justice League diorama would be lovely. Them fighting Darkseid. Yeah, the XM Studios one. That's a centerpiece statue for sure. I don't have him anymore, but it was my Angry Monkey Archangel. This was a custom statue. Most expensive quarter scale I've ever bought. Yeah, a lot of those last level pieces. And I know I famously like didn't like the Iceman, but their X-Men line always blew my mind. Franco Carlissimo Skull before he started doing licensed stuff. But yeah, a lot of those X-Men vs. Sentinels from last level. And even like the phases, the Wolverine phase line was great. Those I would consider grails because you can't just buy phase 1. It's like not readily available like that. So it's a little bit tougher to get, but still possible. ASM 300. Yeah, man, here it goes right here. And Robert's saying not the most valuable comics I have, but I bought these when I was in junior high and had them ever since. So they have a special place in my heart. Yeah, that really sets collectibles apart, right? If you actually purchased it off the rack, held on to it for decades, and it ended up becoming this huge key issue. Because New Mutants 98 was not a huge book when it first came out. New Mutants 87 was the key to own out of that run. Then he's got the Hobgoblin first appearance. Does it have the tattoos? That's the question. Chaz has a good sized collection of original art from Poison Elves, my all-time favorite comic, then a graded Hulk 181 and giant size one. Yep. Great comics to own. I love those. I've owned them both. But yeah, original art, like the original cover for ASM 300 or Spider-Man 1, any McFarlane original cover, that's grail status for sure. My money. Kareem, I'm with you, man. I've scratched that itch of obtaining so many collectibles that I've always wanted to. I'm at the point where it's like, man, I'd rather buy a property or something right now, you know? Maybe I'm getting a little bit boring. Creo Williams, Tales of Suspense 39, FF 48, Iron Man 55, X-Men 1, AF 15. So first appearance of Iron Man, Silver Surfer, Galactus, Thanos, of course the X-Men and Spider-Man. Yeah, this is what also sets it apart too. Like Elon says, 8.0 or higher CGC graded giant size X-Men 1. I wouldn't call it a grail. And then he says, but the X-Men Omnibus by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee. AF-15 is a grail, but in a 1.5 detached cover like I had, not so much. But like a 9.0 AF-15, now you're talking grail status. Imagine a 9.8. I think 9.6 has always been the highest on the census. So if somebody were ever to successfully maybe crack and press one, or there just is some perfect copy sitting in somebody's basement that they get graded and it's a 9.8, that would be a grail. See, and that's why, you know, CGC gets a lot of flack. The comic book bubble would have bursted a long time ago if it wasn't for CGC that added that value to a book. Now a 9.8 of AF-15, first of all, would be a multi-million-dollar book, but would be a true grail because there are none other in that grade. You know, I'm speaking hypothetically. There are none in that grade right now. Seth says, this painting that David Mack did of my dog, who is named Kabuki, I only asked for a sketch with watercolor accents, and he surprised me with the full painting. So that's a true grail. It's a one of one by a famous artist, creator of Echo, and your loved one immortalized in this painting. First of all, let's take a look at the art real quick. Yeah, I love that splash in the back. That's a great piece, actually. Hell yeah. That's a grail for sure. And it's funny because it's a grail only really to you. Like nobody else would really want a picture of your dog, but for you, it has so much value to it. That's a really good one to pick out. The Spawn 1 plucked from the comic book store shelf in 1992 and then recently got Todd to sign it. Again, you got it off the rack. You got the signature yourself. Much different than just buying a graded copy online, even though it's the same thing, but it's really not. Fantastic Four issue 1, CGC 5.6. Hulk number 1. If you get a 5.6, that would be a true grail, but I'm guessing you mean a 5.5. Yeah, Hulk 1 is always one of those ones I always wanted, but I ended up getting out of collecting those books after I realized it's never going to end, is it? I'm always going to want that next book, and they're thousands of dollars each. Shit, back then they were much cheaper than they are now. Although, you know, we've had a crazy comic boom and we're way down from that, but still way more expensive than when I was collecting these keys around 2014, 2015. Damn, that was 10 years ago already. This video is brought to you by Bad Music issue number 1. Following the battle at the Ninja Funk Dojo and the capture of BB, Bad Music retreats to their headquarters at the Nexus. With the love of Laser Wolf's life as irresistible bait, there's no doubt in Queen Bad's mind that her nemesis will come knocking and she's ready for them. Will Laser Wolf, JPG McFly, and Wolfgang see the trap for what it is or run headlong into disaster? Find out in Ninja Funk Bad Music number 1 in stores on May 15th. All right, Christopher says my CMYK print proof separations that were signed by Jim Lee for approval before made into plates for the printing press. These were laid out on a light table so that the registration marks can be aligned to see if the artwork would be okay to go to press. It's basically the artwork created before any of the issues were printed, and it's got Jim's signature saying it's good to print. Yeah, that is super cool, man. I love how they do it with the layers as well. How many of these exist? This is probably the only one, right? Because they would only need one proof to get approval. Chad Pfister, what's up, Chad? He says an FF48 CGC graded above a 5.0. I'm so close to finishing my Silver Surfer single issue collection. What do you guys think about that Silver Surfer casting that Marvel just dropped? Jason says my huge XM X-Men vs. Sentinel diorama. Yeah, man, let's see. So this is the XM Studios one back here. It's 1/6 scale. It's incredibly huge. I saw it in Singapore. And then I see he's got the Iron Studios one here. He's got a custom Magneto on throne. We got an XM Professor X. Great statue collection, yo. Custom Sinister with Madeline Pryor. Yeah, here's what I was showing earlier. Oh, Matt Loveless got the Black Error Venom Lethal Protector one signed by Sam De La Rose. Yo, and a 9.4. I always wanted this Black Error copy. And what's crazy, again, 2014, you could have bought this for super cheap compared to what it started going for. Oh, I just noticed now the Venom Remark too. This might be up there with Grail status. If you search right now for a Venom 1 Lethal Protector Black Error signed and remarked by Sam De La Rosa, you're not going to see probably any pop up. My original Ashcan comic of Criminal 1 signed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. This one's up there for me. One of my favorites in my collection with all my statues and signed items. This is signed by Chris Evans and Stan Lee with authentication, etc. 27x40 movie poster. Yeah, how many of those are around? And especially, like I said, if you got it signed, that's just adds an extra level of specialness to it. My whole cap set up with these older Iron Studios pieces as well. Love the statues, represent Team Cap perfectly. John says X-Men 1. I really want the OG Master Chief, but I think people are sniffing glue when it comes up with their asking prices. Unfortunately, there are no other premium format figures of them. Damn, I don't know if you guys saw all those other pictures I was showing now. Neo Non, see, I don't even know what this piece is, but it's a grail to you. Brandon Wilson says probably not a grail for some, but this is my favorite collectible of all my collections. Is dope. Even with the 1/3 scale Daredevil coming out, I love it. But this Iron Studios quarter scale Daredevil is the best statue out. The Angel base adds so much depth. Did I review this one? Was it yours that I think you sent me to review? Could have been. Joshua says at-home full golf simulator. No singular item that I typically collect and enjoy would compare. David says my AF-15 could literally sell every other collectible I have, but will never sell that. So I did sell all of the keys I was collecting at the time in order to get the AF-15. So I had like a bunch of modern keys and stuff. I'm trying to remember what I sold to get that. Did I sell the ASM-300 and all that? I don't remember. Daniel Molina, J&D Studio, Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard from One Piece, 1/3 scale statue. J&D did this. Yeah, so they're known for doing like hyper realistic pieces. Bernie Rios just showing a table of books here. What do we got? Some 9.8s. Matt says, that's currently available that I don't have. The ECC Jason Voorhees, Sideshow Dead Space, XM Studios White Knight Batman that I already own. Probably my Prime 1/3 scale Predator and my autographed Braveheart poster and sword. That's cool to see those unique items. Mike says, I don't know what's considered an actual Grail item. Everybody has their own view on the topic. But for me, seeing how popular of a piece it is, and I'm not really sure how difficult it is to get anymore, but this would be mine, the XM Studios Dark Phoenix. Yeah, I think at one point during the height of like the statue collecting hobby, it would be considered a Grail. I've seen a lot for sale recently, but still, for you to be a Grail, I totally get it. It's a great piece. Blake says, my photo of Zeb from Star Wars Rebels signed by Steve Blum, who voiced the character. Ethan says, a Grail in terms of dreaming to own realistically is this Daredevil by Sideshow, but can't ever seem to find it. In terms of what that I own, it's the ASM Stan Lee variant signed by the man himself. I would think that this Daredevil wouldn't be too hard to get. They made a variant black suit version as well. Oh, here's the book. Yeah, the Stan Lee stigs I could see being special. Brian says, wasn't sure if this was what's your favorite Grail to own or what's the Grail you always hunt for. So going with the comic that I'll probably never get a chance to own without a miracle. Is Albedo 2, first appearance of Usagi Yojimbo. Jason says, I'm hoping to someday own XM Studios Hulkbuster and either Sideshow or XM Thanos pieces. Those pieces are my goals. Sean Leahy says, the Electric Tiki, the Shadow statue. So that's probably a harder one to find. I'm not even familiar with that one. Even says all of it, right? That's kind of actually where I'm at. It's not just one collectible, but more so the whole collection in itself. And look, another one for ASM 300 signed by Todd, or Batman Superman original comic that was drawn by Ed McGuinness. Oh, original comic page. Yeah, see, those are true grails because there's only one. You can only have one original page. If you know, you know. I don't know, man. What am I looking at here? Pokemon cards. Never got into that. But he's got some GemMintC 10 Pokemons. Okay. Another one. I really want an 8.0 CGC or higher Giant Size X-Men 1. Not a Grail collectible, but the goal to get all the Omnis on my wish list. Yeah, again, the collection is the Grail, right? Of course, it's going to be impossible with some that are out of print, but after getting the Sandman Volume 1, I'll have pretty much everything. Maybe 10 more books after that, and some reprints over time, but I can chill on getting those since outside of the reprints, most are evergreen. Daniel Mitchell says, that's hard to say. My Mark Bagley Venom 155 published page is my latest piece and probably one of my greatest. I may be biased, though, because I met him last week, and he signed 12 hardcovers for free. I remember I was actually talking to Daniel about that, who's local to me, actually. Yeah, very cool, man. You get the transformation. Yeah, original art, man. Especially for published work, is crazy. Not sure if you mean wanted Grail or Grail that I already own. Yeah, I wasn't really even thinking about that when I posted this, but I guess either way works, right? So the one that he owns, Hulk 181, wanted Grail, AF15, any CGC grade or raw copy. I'm with you on that. Ben Ignacio says, WWE CM Punk Funko Pop, Hot Topic exclusive, also the first one to start my collection when it first came out. Still, this Mattel DC-UC Giganta. Matthew says, my comic grails, I don't have my statue set up at the moment. So his comic grails are FF48, Giant Size 1, ASM 300. The statue-wise, XM Apocalypse, Custom Wolverine, Custom Omega Red. I know which Custom Omega Red you're talking about. That's a great piece. And also very hard to get. Godzilla and Rodan that I used to own as a child, says Eric Thompson. Shout out to Wolfpack. I think my signed Stan Lee pop figure that holds more of an emotional value to me. Hasbro Unicron. Dang. Roan says, one of mine. There are a few, but this one will always be awesome. XM Ghost Rider. Can't argue with that. FBI Comics says, I'm missing 3 Marvel Masterworks. If I have those, then I'll have them all in the numbered Marvel edition. Another one that the whole collection is what makes it a Grail. I like that. And the last one by Andrew Stevens says, I certainly have more valuable comic books and key issues, but the one that I cherish the most is my Superman New 52 issue 8. It's the first comic book I ever bought back in 2018 when I first made the decision to start collecting comic books. Bought it for no other reason than I thought that the cover looked cool. Yeah, so it's cool to see what people consider their grails. I like the personal touch. That makes a lot of sense. Some people have books that are grails to them. Other people could just purchase them, no big deal. You know, but there's definitely a relative income scale here where some things are too expensive for some, where other people have the money, they could buy whatever. And then some people have truly one-of-a-kind, one-of-ones that are definitely grail status. Definitely thank you everyone in the Geminites Facebook group for sharing their grails. YouTube, let me know what's your grail in the comments down below. It could be something that you currently own, something that's on your wish list. Sound off, and I appreciate you watching. Stay minty fresh. Peace.